Hi, I'm back again with no makeup on because I can only seem to find time to film these on a weekend or whenever I'm on a road trip. So, thank you. This is so nice. I really didn't think that people would enjoy these this much, but yeah, I have a decent amount of ghost stories. Okay, so I'm just gonna get to it. So, it was December 25th, 2012. It was Christmas Day, and my parents and I were traveling with our two cats, my dog Teddy and my beta fish Ryan Gosling, to Michigan for family Christmas. And to get there, we have to go through Chicago, and we had to pass the Fullerton exit. So if you're not familiar with Chicago, it's a big exit in Chicago that takes you off into like the Lakeview neighborhood, but it also is kind of where the express lanes split, and it has a pretty decent curve. We checked the forecast before we left because obviously on a 5.5 hour drive, you aren't going to want to drive through a snowstorm in December. So we checked it, completely clear. My dad's driving, and we get to around the Fullerton exit a little bit before, and this lake effect snowstorm kind of hits, and it started hitting hard, and everything kind of just froze on the road. Like it was just snow everywhere, ice everywhere, and my dad was going about 40 when the accident happened. I remember looking at the speedometer and it was about 41. Too fast for a snowstorm, sure, but he wasn't driving recklessly. And before I knew it, so my dad's driving, my mom's in the passenger seat, I'm in the back seat, like I'm in the driver's seat right now. I'm in the behind the driver. And I feel our wheels slip, and we're in the far left lane, and I feel us start sliding really fast, skidding across all 4 lanes of traffic to the far right lane. We hit the barricade, bounce off, spin all the way back, and I am freaking out because I can just see us going full speed, and we are going right in the direction of the left lane light pole, and I know immediately that the car is going to wrap around me, and I thought I was going to die. For sure thought I was going to die. I was like, I'm going to die on Christmas, and the car is going to catch on fire, and I'm not going to be able to get out. So then, sure enough, car wraps around the light pole, it wraps around me, and I feel everything hit. I mean, it was just like getting hit by a bus. Everything hurt. And I see my mom get a lot of, like, the console really hit my mom in the ribs and the kidney area and the hip, and she just let out this scream. I saw my dad's head shatter, the glass on the driver's side, and my window just broke. I don't know if my head broke it or if it was just the force. I don't know, but I was in pain everywhere. And it's also very important to note that there were no cars on the road when this happened. There were none. I mean, it's weird for Chicago for there not to be cars on the road. Yes, it was Christmas Day, but it's still very weird that there were no cars on the road. So getting to the interesting part. My parents did not immediately call 911. We were all like, are the animals okay? Are we okay? My dad has a flashlight. Again, military guy. Shining the light in my mom's eyes. He couldn't get to me. He couldn't get out of the car. I couldn't get out of the car because our car went into a C around the light pole, and I was in the middle of the C. So I was like, I can't get out. My mom could, but she was in so much pain she couldn't. So we didn't know the extent of our injuries, and by this point, no one had called 911. And all of a sudden, we see this like Jeep just pull up and park right in front of us. Came out of nowhere, by the way. And this Hispanic gentleman, he's probably like 5'11", gets out of the car. He's super tan. He looks very friendly, and he's wearing like what I could best describe as like a Gulf War era cami get up. And it was like an army cami situation. And he starts walking towards the car, and he sees my mom's, like, basically all of the windows were broken. And he was like, hi, my name is, and I cannot remember his name, but it started with a J, and he had the nicest face, the nicest eyes. He immediately just started. He was like, my name is Poop. I want to help you guys. I called 911. They're on their way. I'm going to stay with you guys. And started asking my mom specific questions, asking my dad specific questions. And he came over to me and like hopped the barricade so that he could see inside the car from where it was wrapped around the light post. And he was really calming to me. I think it's very important to note here that I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I've had it since I was 15. So at this stage in my life, it was a really, really, really big thing that somebody was able to like be very kind and empathic and understanding of my PTSD in the way that my mom is and always was, because I didn't know how to handle it yet, and now I do. But then I didn't know what was happening to me. So I was really, really scared. I was like, I felt very weird. Everything hurt. I was freaking out. And he was able to calm me down. He was asking me, you know, where did I grow up? What's my best friend's name? All these specific questions just to calm me down, and shine the flashlights in my eyes. And yeah, he was like, I'm gonna wait with you guys. I called 911. He kept repeating that. And then he was like, I am also gonna meet you guys at the hospital. And we were like, okay, great. And I look behind me and I see ambulance lights pulling up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the ambulances that he called are on their way. And I look back and he's gone. And my mom was like, where did he go? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe he drove away, but we didn't see him drive away. So the EMTs pull up, and the ambulances, the fire truck, the police, the wrecker, because our car was done. They pull up and ask, I immediately am like, oh, did you see the man, the man that called you guys? He was just here. Did you see where he went? He's meeting us at the hospital. And they said there was nobody here and there were no cars leaving the highway when we got here. Okay. And I was like, no, but like he was right here. He was right here as you guys pulled up. And they were like, no, and also nobody called us. There was no call made to the emergency medical services, and nobody called 911. We saw your crash from the other side further down the highway. And that was really weird. And so I wasn't buying this. So anyway, they somehow managed to pry my side out, help me. My dad had to, I think, climb through the window, and they had to take my door off, and I got out. And they took us to the hospital. And in my file still, it says, because I was reading it the other day and it made me think of the story. I was like repeatedly asking the lady in the ambulance. I was like, there was nobody that called. He was right there with us. Like, he was right there with us. He was staying with me. He told me his name. He told me that he was in the military, because that was something that he told me. It was that he was in the military. And they were like, there was nobody there. Nobody called us. We just happened to see you. You guys got really lucky. And they said that we were really lucky to be alive, because not many people would survive a crash like this. And I was like, okay. The doctor said that nobody called them. So yeah. Basically, follow up, we all ended up being fine. My mom has some kidney issues. I broke a bunch of ribs, cracked a bunch of ribs, had some sort of head injury. It wasn't a concussion, but it was a head injury. My dad had like literally nothing wrong with him except for like a sliced open forehead. But yeah, we don't know where this guy came from, what happened to him. I don't know if he was a person. I don't know if he was a ghost of somebody that had passed away. I don't know if he was like an active duty, like military civilian that was helping us, or if he was an angel, because I'm a person of faith, and I don't know. But yeah, I can't explain it, and I'd like to believe that maybe it was an angel. I guess this is really common with people in car accident situations to see stuff like this, but would like to say I was not hallucinating. I was not in shock. I was fine. This man was there, and yeah, that's...
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true.
All right, it's taken me a few days to get to this because I've been traveling and I am now sick, but now that I am holed up in my hotel room in Vietnam, I am ready to tell you more stories. Travel is my normal content, but I had to jump on this trend because if you were here for the first story, you already know that I lived in a house with my now ex-husband, then husband, that I did experience quite a bit of activity in. In the first story, I told you guys that my mom was the first one to let me know that I had a spirit in the house. This is significant to this story as well. This was quite a bit after the first story, maybe 6 months or so, and we hadn't experienced any activity in the house really, or I say we, I should just say me, because my ex-husband never saw anything or really felt anything, but he always believed me when I told him that I was having experiences, simply because of my family, and he just knows that we're very spiritually in tune. Me and my ex-husband are both musicians. We've been in bands our whole lives pretty much, and at this time I was in a band with two people who just happened to be amazing artists on top of being amazing musicians. They did paintings and drawings and sculptures and carpentry, and they were just amazing at everything they did. So one day at band practice, my drummer brought in a bass drum head. It's the back of the bass drum that makes it go boom boom. That's the best way I can explain it if you're a non-musician and you don't know what a bass drum head is. So it's really big, actually, kind of like this painting that's behind me, about that size. And he had painted this bass drum head a deep red, and he had put a nose, sculpted a nose onto it and eyes as well. And he called it the Man on the Moon. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And it also exactly matched the deep red that I had in my kitchen, and I wanted it for my house. So I asked him if I could buy it, and he just gave it to me as a gift. So I went home that night, I hung it up in my kitchen, and my ex-husband loved it. It just went perfectly with the decor in the kitchen, and it was great. I loved it. Over the course of the next 2 months, me and my ex-husband just really were bickering a lot, and that wasn't like us. We weren't a bickering kind of couple. We were both pretty calm usually. So it was just very strange that we were randomly just at each other's throats. And we even would kind of bicker and then just look at each other like, what are we doing? Like we didn't understand why we were being so just kind of nasty to each other. There was one night in the kitchen, I was cooking. I think I was making tacos, which is not significant to the story, but for whatever reason, I remember that. And I just suddenly had a massive panic attack. It was like the weight of the world just came down on me, and it was the most random thing. And I was literally on the floor, not able to breathe. I thought I was dying. So it's maybe a week or two after this incident, my mom comes to visit. And once again, I wake up the first morning after her being there, and she is standing in the kitchen, and she is looking directly at this Man on the Moon bass drum head that's hung above the sink. She's just staring at it. And when I walk in the kitchen, she looks at me and she says, you need to get rid of this. You need to get this out of your house. There is something attached to this, and it's going to cause discourse in your life. You need to get it out of the house. And as soon as she says that, literally every argument, every bad moment, every just unexplainable outburst that me and my ex-husband have had over the course of the 2 months just keeps playing in my head. And then I tell her about the panic attack I had, and she's like, absolutely, it is this. You have to get it out of here. Now this is where you guys are going to get mad at me. Because I believed my mom 1,000%, and I did get it out of the house, but I had grown so attached to it because it was a gift from my friend, and I just found it to be so beautiful that I just did not have the heart to throw it out. So I got it out of the house, but I kept it in the garage. So the very next weekend, I am driving home from a gig in Dallas. We lived in Arlington at this time, and that's maybe a 25 to 30 minute drive. It's about 2 a.m. I am the only car on the freeway, and just for clarification, I had put this Man on the Moon sculpture in the garage, propped up on the wall next to my car. So you see the correlation here. Again, there's no other car on the freeway, and suddenly just boom, something hits my car. Just completely slams the front end of my car. I assume that it's a piece of a tire that was maybe on the ground, or something that was on the ground that I hit, but I didn't really ever see it. But something just slammed dead into my car. The car was still completely drivable, so I just went ahead and continued to drive home. There was no part of me that wanted to be on the side of the highway at 2 a.m. by myself. So I get home, and the driver's side front end of the car is just completely destroyed. I have no idea how the car was able to drive all the way back, because again, that was like a 30-minute drive, and I had just left Dallas. And you better believe the next day I threw that Man in the Moon into the garbage, never to be seen again. It's what I should have done in the first place, and that probably would have never happened. Of course, you could explain it as, oh, it was just a random freak accident. Yeah, absolutely it could have been, but I was also the only car on the highway. And after the Man in the Moon was gone, everything went back to normal. I actually got a new car out of the deal, which was pretty cool. But yeah, just another instance of when I should have listened to my mom.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, one more story. That was another one of my brother's story, and then I will also include a picture of my creepy house that I grew up in. If you haven't seen my other stitches, I grew up in a haunted house. To hear the history on it, you can watch any of the other videos, but essentially a lot of older people died in the house before we bought it, so it was not surprising that it was haunted. So my brother used to see two main apparitions in the house. One was of an older lady and one was of an older man. And the first time he saw the older man, he was in his bedroom, and there was like a hall light outside of it on the ceiling, and he kept noticing that the light was dimming, like in regular intervals. Like it would just dim for a second and then like brighten again, and dim and brighten again. And he thought it was like kind of weird, but whatever. There's a lot of kind of weird stuff that would happen in there. And he had a weird bedroom door that had a window on the door. All the doors were, it was just, the house was weird, but he like was trying to figure out why it kept dimming in these like regular intervals, and he looked out the window of his bedroom door and saw it was because there's this man walking back and forth, like pacing up and down the hallway, and every time that his head would kind of cross in front of where the light is, it would make the light look dim, and then he'd walk back. And so that was kind of how it, like, he first saw this apparition of the older man. But one day when he saw the older man, he kept like heard that he was whispering something, and he was trying to figure out what it was, and it started getting louder and louder, and he realized that the ghost apparition, whatever, was whispering blood. And this just happened one day, and he just kept like saying it louder and louder and louder. And then later that day, I don't know exactly how it happened. He doesn't really know exactly how it happened, but when he was shutting his bedroom door, the glass that was like in the window of his bedroom door shattered and like sliced across his thumb, and he like bled everywhere. He was fine. He had to, go in and get stitches and stuff, but it was weird because it was the day that the apparition was walking back and forth in front of his bedroom saying blood. A little bonus story of things shattering. My parents one day were talking, we had a bunch of just art and different pictures on the wall in the house, and one day they noticed a picture they hadn't really paid attention to in several years, and they had a whole conversation about it for the first time in a long time. And later that day, that picture just happened to fall off the wall and like break into a bunch of pieces. So that was kind of crazy. Anyway, I'll post a picture of my house now. It looks haunted to me, but I'm biased just based on my experiences. But let me know what you think.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
Okay, I have one, but it's not my story. It didn't happen to me, thank God. It's actually my mom's, and she actually recently shared this with me and like my husband and my sister, I think. And it happened in Mexico. So you already know like it's gonna be bad. So my mom grew up in Cocula, Guerrero, and she was like in a very poor, like just dirt poor neighborhood. That was her life. And I don't know, but it's very known and we all believe in it. We're all Christians. However, we know we're like in a very like spiritual warfare basically around like our life, our everyday life. So we know that these bad things can happen. And witchcraft is just very big in Mexico. And in our area also, like in the area where my mom grew up. Anyways, one night my mom needed to go pee, and it's very, very dark over there. It's like it's rancho, so there's basically almost no light, but a little bit of light, but not too much. She was too tired to walk all the way to the back, she described it as, where there's like an outdoor restroom. And so she just kind of popped a squat on the front of the house. Now the front of the house is like there's gates, there's like metal gates protecting you from like the street, like the main street or whatever. And she's popping a squat, kind of half asleep. It's dark, but neighbors kind of have like their like torch lighting basically, or like candles here and there. And as she's like squatting, peeing, she's like looking out, and she sees like a figure of a woman like in the middle of the street. And she kind of was like first like confused, intrigued, because she was still a little too far to like see how she looked like really, but she could see someone was walking down the street. And she tells me as she gets closer, she starts kind of like seeing her, and she's wearing all black, a black like veil, long, but her hair is super long, super black. And she said she started freaking out because the closer she got, well, she was scared that she was gonna see her because she's like about to pass my mom. And that's when she like literally froze to death, because she looked at her feet again. Like the door is just like basically like a cell, metal cell, so you could see through it completely all the way to the bottom. She said the woman she wasn't walking. She was like, her feet were dragging amongst the dirt road. And that's when my mom was like, oh my God. And I asked her like, Mom, you were tired. It was like, middle of the night. It was dark. Like, are you sure you weren't just like imagining it? She's like, I'm 100% sure I was not imagining it. Like, I was fully awake. I had already gotten out of the house. I'm like currently peeing. Like, yes, I'm sleepy, but I'm like awake. And she froze, tried not to make any noise, because again, this woman's like passing her as she's like squatting down. And like she starts, I think when she realizes she needs to like move and go back into the house is when she sees this lady. Like basically she had already passed her, so now she's basically like, I think, sensing my mom, and she starts turning her head slowly. And my mom said that when she realized that she was about to like basically make eye contact with her, she booked it inside. And when she was telling me this story, like my mom, I don't think once she was trying to even share it. I think we were just talking about something and she decided to share it. But I think that was the first time she was sharing this story, because at the same time she was like, and then like she was like reliving like the fact that story also like was like, oh my God, it was actually real. And now that I'm saying it out loud, like it sounds so crazy and so like horrifying. And she was a little girl when this was happening too. So yeah, it was crazy. And I'm like, I believe you, because like where you're from, like this is so like prominent. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, so was she like a real woman? Was she like a ghost? Like, she's like, I don't know. She looked real, but like she was literally like, her feet weren't touching the floor. Like the tips of her toes were literally just dragging amongst the dirt. And that part, I was like, Okay, stop.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so this is like 5 or 6 years ago at this point, and me and my old roommate are like, let's live with our 2 best friends. Find a 4-bedroom house. It'll be awesome. We find this place. It's super cheap for good reason. There's a lot wrong with it, but we're like, screw it. Like, let's fuck around. I think we were like maybe a month into living there. Maybe it was like 2 weeks. I'm not sure. But one of our roommates, my best friend, sends us all a text message. Is somebody in the house upstairs right now? Because, you know, one of us was supposed to be at work, the other one was doing something, and I was at work too. And so this whole upstairs room, that's all, we're gonna call her Veronica's room, right? So, and my best friend, Cecilia is downstairs, and she hears footsteps going back and forth upstairs, and she's freaking out because all of us are like, we're not home. So she's like, do I call the cops? Blah, blah, blah. We call the landlord. I can't remember, I don't think we called the cops, but we were just like freaking out. She went up there and said nobody was up there, so we call an exterminator to come check it out, and, you know, there's no animals up there, but he puts traps just in case. Those traps never catch anything, by the way. So a couple of months go by, and like everything's, you know, cool, funky, fresh, and I start feeling like this weird unsettling feeling in my room. And my room is always like unnaturally cold, like not supposed to be that cold. And I thought maybe it's just because like I had a draft or something, but now that I'm looking back, I'm like, did that mean something? Okay, so I am out of town working an event with Veronica, and our roommates Cecilia and Mackenzie are at home, right? I have this horrific nightmare that I'm in the house and I know that I can't get to Mackenzie, right? She is rooms away. I'm seeing like doors in front of me stacking to her. And then in steps somebody I knew from work, but his face isn't right. He's smiling weird, like it's too big. Like it's unnatural. Something's wrong with his mouth. And then he walks through the first doorway, and suddenly he's somebody else that I know, and his smile's a little bigger. And he walks through the next doorway, and he's somebody else that I know, and his smile's even bigger. And then the last person that gets into my bed next to me is like this dude from work, the last person I'd want to see in my bed. And he is smiling, the scariest one of all of them, and he just gets into bed next to me. I shoot up out of bed. I wake up in a sweat, and lo and behold, I get a call from Mackenzie. Mackenzie has had a dream that she was dragged down the stairs by something evil in our house. And I'm like, no fucking way. Like, this is the dream I just had, and I'd woken up right when she had gotten out of the house, right? So she leaves the house. She hits a dog on the way out of our house, like in the parking spot, like a puppy. She is losing her mind. Eventually she goes back to the house, you know, things settle down a little bit, but there's still this weird eerie air to the whole house, like something's wrong. And it gets worse. So I'm not sure how long it was after that, but me and my boyfriend are on this like cleaning binge. We just clean the house like crazy, and it's about 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and it's during COVID time, so we don't have anything else to do, whatever, and we're like, let's go to bed. So my bedroom had a bathroom in it, right? And the door was really hard to get open because of the carpet. Like, the carpet was super fluffy, and you had to like basically put your whole body weight into it to get the door open. Like, people complained about it every time they came to my place. So the door is closed. Me and him are in bed, and something in that bathroom kicks the door open. And not like a little kick, like a fucking boom, kicks the door open. And I'm like, get up, Aaron, go in there and check it out, like, go in there. I'm freaking out. I'm literally tweaking. I'm like, is this just the like anxiety from being up all night? I hope this isn't real. He does a little spin in that room, and he's, you know, shock on his face, eyebrows hitting the fucking ceiling, and he's like, there's nothing in here. So we sit there in a panic for a while, and eventually we go to sleep. Everything's fine after that. So sometime later, Cecilia is asleep in her room with her boyfriend, and there's this little table at the end of her bed, and it has her, like, you know, her table reads on it, and her computer. It goes flying off the table in the middle of the night, crashing to the floor, wakes her up. And Cecilia's not the type to believe in ghosts, but she swears by it today. She swears that it was what happened. So, our house was haunted. That's kind of the worst of what happened. I have more stories about other places if you want to hear it, because I think I'm the one that's haunted. So yeah, let me know if you want to hear them.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
Okay, I'll go next. I have been trying to record this video for like 6 or 7 times already, and every time that I've tried to record it, either it's missing a sound, it's not recording right, or it's failing to upload. So I'm hoping that this time it does it. But I've got to talk about this one. This one actually happened today. It's Mother's Day, but this one happened today. And mind you, this isn't something that I normally post about, so this is kind of different, so I figured I'd talk about it. So this morning I left the house at like 4 in the morning so I can go to Lake Jackson, and of course, early morning road trip, it's dark as hell outside. It is dark. I drive through Goliad. Okay. Now, I don't know if anyone else from Texas or the Goliad area has ever experienced this in Goliad, but I do want to know if anyone has ever heard of this or has experienced this happening. But as I'm driving through Goliad, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear a loud boom and I see a flash of light. Okay. All of a sudden, after I see the flash of light, I hear a bunch of something like rocks or pebbles, something hitting the front of the truck. It's not raining, it's not thundering. I checked the app, I checked the weather app, so there's no rain, there's nothing. I stick my hand out the window, maybe scattered shower, something. No, there is nothing out there. So I start recording. I turned on the light inside my truck and it stopped. Like whatever was hitting the truck stopped. I turned off the light and I'm recording all of this, right? So I turn off the light and you start hearing the truck being pelted with something all over again. Like it's hitting the windshield, it's hitting the front of the truck, it's hitting the hood of the truck. You could hear it. And something, it's like pebbles or stones that are pelting the truck. And you know, I had thought, well, maybe I hit, you know, an area, maybe it's bugs. No bugs. I looked when I got to a gas station just outside of Goliad. I stopped because I was a little unnerved, and I looked at the truck. There's nothing. There's no bugs on the windshield. There's no trace of rain. There's nothing. There is nothing to indicate what hit the truck. Like, you know, okay, maybe it could have been hail, but there's no indentions in the truck. There's no indentions in the hood. I don't have any new cracks or anything on the windshield. You know, so all of this is going on. And I did record these sounds that were going on around the truck. And this happened, I mean, until I got out of Goliad. Until I got into the next county is when it finally stopped. And it was just so unnerving that it happened. So I get to Lake Jackson, right? And I'm telling my fiance, or I'm telling hubbies, hey, you're not gonna believe what happened. And he's like, what? And I said, well, I was going through Goliad and it sounded like a cannon. It was a real loud boom. So there was a real loud boom, and I'm telling him this story, and he's like, yeah. So I don't know what he made of that, but if anyone in Texas or Goliad, the Goliad area, has experienced this in Goliad, please let me know. I kind of want to hear y'all's experience on this, because it was just really weird. It really was. I do got more stories, but that's for another day.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
First off, I don't know how y'all are stitching this, because every time I try to stitch it, my voice goes silent. Like, you can't hear me talking. Anyway, so that's why I had to do it this way. So I'm going to start all the way from the beginning. And my story isn't like, you know, this all happened in a couple months. Like, this has been from 2006 all the way up to 2022. So a good portion of my life. In 2006, after my parents got divorced, I moved into a house with my mom and my new well, he wasn't my stepdad yet, but soon to be stepdad, his kids, and my siblings. So after we moved into that house, the first night, we didn't have everything moved in yet. We were still kind of bringing stuff over from the other house and the storage unit. So I slept on an air mattress in my new bedroom, and nothing was in there yet. I think I maybe had like one dresser, and the closet door was wide open. And I don't know why I fell asleep with the closet door open. I just wasn't scared of anything at that point. So I slept with the closet door open. I wake up in the middle of the night out of nowhere, not from a nightmare or anything, just woke up. I look over and I'm like opening my eyes, looking into the closet, and there is a figure of some sort, looked like a little child with their like hands like this in the closet looking at me, but I didn't feel scared, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just maybe thought it was a dream, didn't feel scared. It looked like a little girl. Nothing crazy happened in that house. We actually spent most of our time living there, tearing it down and redoing it. Like, my mom used to redo like houses that needed to be updated. She'd update houses. So anyway, we move into our next house about a year later, and nothing crazy happened to me at that house either. It was more so just like every once in a while when I was home, like a door would be open that I knew was closed, or like the lights would flicker every once in a while. Like, again, nothing too crazy. Then I move out finally in 2012. Yeah, I was 22. 2012, I move out with my boyfriend at the time, and we move into our first apartment together. And we lived on the upper level of this apartment. So someone lived downstairs, we lived upstairs, so we had to walk upstairs to get into the house. So you would walk in directly into the kitchen, turn left, and there was like a little family room type thing, a bathroom, a bedroom. And then you would walk upstairs to our loft, which was just a bedroom. That was our bedroom. So we had a dog at the time. His name was Bandit, and he was young. He was like maybe 6 months to a year. And he would always bark at this one spot in the house. So when you walk into the little family room, there was a door that if it wasn't blocked off, you could go downstairs into the downstairs area where the other people lived. So he would every couple nights, maybe once a week, would sit there and growl and bark at the door. And I have videos of it. It freaked me out because I was there by myself a lot. He worked 3 to midnights, so I was there alone a lot. And every once in a while, I'd be upstairs in my bed. I would always have him with me up in that bed, the dog, and he would growl and bark at the stairwell, like just going downstairs into the family room, like when I was up in my loft. Throughout our time there, things would go missing. So like my ex's keys would be in one spot one day and then they weren't there, and we would look all over the house for the keys, and like he'd be like, where'd you move them? I'd be like, I didn't move them anywhere. So we would lose things, like just little things, keys, things in the kitchen, bathroom things would go missing. It was just strange. And same kind of thing throughout every house I lived in after that point. So again, nothing scary to the point where I was running out of any house. Like, lights would get turned on here and there. Doors would be open that weren't open before. You know, the basement would be creepy as hell, and I would hear creaking down there when I was home alone. And I'm telling you, this is every house that I lived in while him and I were together. Fast forward to our divorce. We got divorced in 2020, and I moved into a house by myself with my kids. But like, I bought a house by myself, and I was alone, living alone for the first time in my entire life. This house wasn't new. It was like a 1970s house. You walk in the front door and it was a wide open concept, you know, dining room area, kitchen, family room area. And then it was like a split level. So downstairs there was like a basement, but it was only like 3 stairs down to the basement, and then like 3 stairs up to where the bedrooms were. So I lived there alone before Ange, my wife, moved in for I moved in October, she moved in February. So about 4 months. There was a lot of shit that happened in this house while I lived there by myself. But I've never been the person to run away from like scary shit. Like, I worked in a haunted house. Like, I love scary movies. I don't poke the bear when it comes to spirits. I just let it go. So throughout my time living there, more lights flickered than I've ever seen in my life. I would be sitting in the kitchen and the lights would be flickering in the dining room area, this chandelier that we had. So they would just flicker on and off for a while, and they were new bulbs, like nothing that they weren't going bad. They would just flicker. And I would tell my wife this on the phone. I'd be like, oh my God, the lights are flickering again. There was this little crawl space, attic thing. When you would go down the stairs from where all the bedrooms were, there was a crawl space up there. The amount of times that I heard creaking and little bangs here and there while I was home, like, again, I would ignore it. I'd just let it go. I didn't pay any mind to it, but I heard shit up there all the time. Fast forward to when she moves in. We're on TikTok live one night and we're sitting on our bed. And I guess a medium of some kind comes into our TikTok live and says, there's a little girl standing over you, and there's a man standing behind her. But so I say to this medium, I'm like, okay, like, this is what's been happening in this house. Like, again, I'm not afraid, but I definitely feel some type of presence here. Like, there's something going on. So she says, this is a very little girl. She's about three or four. And she can't get to her family. Like, she is alone. She has been trying to get to the other side, to her family, for a long time. This is what you have to do. I have literal chills on my legs as I'm saying this. So she's like, get a candle, go downstairs, talk to her and say, I release you. I'm letting you go to the other side, and then blow out the candle. And I'm like, okay, like, this is gonna work. And she's like, this spirit has been attached to you for a very long time. I can't tell you how long. She has been with you for a very long time, and she finds safety in your presence. And that's probably why I never felt, like, I don't know, I never felt like it was a bad energy. I always just kind of let it go. I let her stick around. Like, it never bothered me. So I did. I went downstairs and I did the whole candle ritual. I said, you're free to go, Rose. It was nice having you here, but you're free to go. Please go over to the other side. Like, I release you. When I tell you I never had another experience in that house or anywhere here in our new house ever again. I have not had anything, you know, no lights flickering, doors aren't being left open. I don't hear banging, nothing, like, absolutely nothing. I then went and researched the first house that I lived in, that I saw that figure, that shadow in the closet, and I couldn't find anything. So I was thinking maybe a little girl named Rose died there, like, nothing, couldn't find anything. But one part I did forget in the house that I was in the last house before I released her, I saw a shadow in my closet constantly. And my wife would always make me close the closet because I kept saying, yeah, the shadow's there. Like, it's there. I would sleep on that side of the bed because she didn't want to be near the closet. I'd be like, the shadow's there again. The shadow's there again. So she was with me from when I was 16 until I was 32 years old. So 16 years. And as soon as I released her, I actually got sad. I was like, oh, man. So nothing, you know, satanic, or I don't know if I can say the word demonic. But I definitely had a spirit attached to me for a really long time.
A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Some of this happened to my siblings and some of this happened to me, but when we were kids, we would spend a lot of time at my grandparents' house just because, like, my parents were, like, busy off doing something by themselves or whatever. But my grandparents' basement is unfinished. It's pretty much just a giant storage room, and they would always say that, like, you know, we shouldn't be going down there just because it's, you know, dangerous or whatever. We'd always go down anyway, secretly. Just because it was kind of cool down there for a kid. Like, it had a sauna, it had a treadmill, and, like, some old pianos and stuff like that. But for this one story, it was my brother and my sister were down in this basement, and they were just kind of screwing around for a little while. And then my sister, you know, being the older sibling she started, like, running ahead of my brother, and she, like, ran up the stairs, and she closed the door behind her, and then she, like, pressed against it so that he couldn't open it. And then, you know, he's, of course, now in this, like, scary basement alone, so he's up at the stairs, like, banging on the door, like, you know, like, let me out, open the door. And then he kind of stops for a second, and then he starts hearing, like, these really heavy footsteps, like, up the stairs behind him. And so he starts freaking the fuck out, and he's, like, banging on the door, like, Michaela, open the door, I'm so scared! And she finally, like, once the steps get, like, directly behind him, she opens the door and lets him out. And he's just, like, tears streaming down his face. He's freaked the fuck out. Because he heard footsteps behind him in an empty basement. Safe to say that the two of them did not go down there for a little while. But I would say about a year later, I was only, like, 5 or 6 at this time, but I was spending the night at my grandparents' house with my cousin. And we were playing hide and seek because we were bored. And I could not find her for like 15 minutes. I had no idea where she was. I searched the entire house, but you know, basement was off limits because we were both very scared of it. And so I find my grandma because I'm like, I can't find my cousin. Like, can you help me? And she was like, okay. So we eventually make it upstairs and everything. And the way my grandparents' upstairs hallway is lined out is it's like you go up the stairs and then to the left it's my grandma's like master bedroom, right? And then when you go down to the right, there's a guest bedroom on the right hand side, and then the left hand side is the hallway bathroom, a guest bedroom, and then my grandpa's room. They sleep in separate rooms because my grandpa snores really bad and it drives my grandma crazy. So but we check her whole room, nothing in there, and then we go down the other end of the hallway towards my grandpa's room so that we can check all the rooms down there. And I don't know why, but she skipped both guest bedrooms and she just went straight to my grandpa's room. I don't remember if like I was like completely sure that my cousin wasn't in there or what. But my grandma is just heading straight down to my grandpa's room and I'm just following behind her. And when I'm passing that guest bedroom on the left, I just see, like, this full figure. It was a extremely tall, like 6'5", like, black man, red sweater. And I'm like, why is this guy in this house? And he's like, this guest bedroom on the left, it had, like, an old computer in it at, like, this old desk. And there was just, like, books and, like, you know, magazines scattered all around it. So no one ever really went in there. But, like, this guy is just, like, hunched over the computer, like, working on something on there. And so I'm like, huh? And so I like, walk fully past the room, and I see this figure out of, like, the corner of my eye. But I'm like, wait, why is this guy in here? So I take a couple steps back, and he's completely gone. So I just run after my grandma, and I don't even think I told her what I saw because I was just like so scared, and I was like, she's not going to believe me that I saw a man standing at her computer. And so I just didn't, but I was just like scared. And like we found my cousin underneath my grandpa's bed and whatever, but like I don't even think I told my cousin what I saw just because I was in like complete disbelief. But that stuck with me to today, you know. I'm still kind of freaked out about that. What's especially weird though is my grandparents' house isn't that old. It's only like 17 or 18 years old. Like they built it and then they moved in there, so no one lived there before them. So I don't understand why we had so many ghostly experiences.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Hi. So, my bestie told me that I should do one of these videos because I just have like history kind of things with certain entities and certain like ghosty kind of stories. My sister actually has the better ones, so with her permission I might share those later on, but I'm gonna give you my crazy ghost story. So I don't know how sensitive I am or whatever it is. Sometimes I just draw it to like the fact that I'm an empath, but I can smell things. I know that's super weird, but like I get like, I'll smell like I'll get a whiff of something and it'll be like my grandmother's perfume who passed in 2009, or my grandfather's who passed away in 2002 when I was only like 14, you know? So what happened to me this one night was I was on a ghost tour and with my sisters and my father. My father has always told us stories too. Like I think he's the one that, and if any of us get like special senses, it's from him, right? Because my mom thinks it's a bunch of crock. So I mean, usually you can chalk up things that happen to people as stuff that happens every day. They just don't understand it, I guess. So anyway, here is my ghosty story. So I've been on ghost tours for fun. I really like history, and that's usually what I learn from these ghost tours. The first one I ever did was in Savannah, Georgia. It was really fun. It was great. We learned history and stuff, and I really enjoyed it. Nothing happened to me. I was pregnant, and on the ghost tour, these people made me sit downstairs in like this old basement built in like 1760, and they had cameras on me and set a bunch of orbs around me, but I felt nothing. Okay, so Savannah, Georgia did not do it for me. My honeymoon, fast forward to 2014, we decided to go, we got married in October, so we decided to go to Massachusetts for our honeymoon. I really wanted to go to New England. I'd never been there before, and we went to Salem, of course. And when we were in Salem, we decided to do a ghost tour, right? It was incredible, by the way. I wish I remember which tour it was, but it was incredible. We learned so much history. We went to so many places that like we didn't go to during the day. So if you are in Salem at any point in time, please just go do a ghost tour, even if it's just for the history. Again, I kind of felt like I was being watched the entire time I was there. Like I would just like, you know, just like you look over your shoulder. So, but again, nothing really there. Shockingly enough, right? You can't go into cemeteries at night in Massachusetts though, so maybe if I went into one of those, something more exciting would have happened, I guess, but no, nothing. I didn't even get weird smells. However, I live in Illinois, and in 2016 or 17, I don't remember which one, my sisters and I, my dad, like I said, went on this ghost tour in Alton, Illinois. If you don't know Alton, Illinois, look it up. Seriously. It's where a bull shark was found in the Mississippi River. There's tons of history. It's right on the Mississippi River. It's just old. Like it's old, but it's a really cool town. A lot of limestone is there, if you know the history with limestone, or like just the I guess like the gossip behind that, or what people think limestone can do. Ghost hunters, if you ever watch Ghost Hunters, they were there at Mineral Springs Hotel. Yeah, so we went on this ghost tour and it was fine. Like he was telling us stuff in history and whatever. They actually have pieces of a Civil War prison. It was for like the prisoners were Confederates here in Illinois, so it was a Union prison for Confederates, right? So that was really cool to go by. I'd been there before, you know, like I'd been Alton before, right? The last place on the tour, we went into a church. We went, I think it's some Unitarian church up on like part of a hill there. I instantly felt dread as soon as I walked in there. And you sat in like the wooden pews, and it's a really small church. And it was kind of weird because I'm trying to describe it to people. You had your two sections of pews with the middle aisle down, and my dad and I sat next to each other. And the guy who started playing the piano that was there, like our head guy, he was like playing fun music and like making it funny, you know. And my sisters sat like away from us. I'm not positive where, but they sat not right next to my dad and I, which was crazy. And like in the, like, there was like a partition wall, right? Like I was sitting down and that's where the altar was in front of us. It wasn't very, it's not big, right? Maybe 20 feet in front of us was the altar, and then behind it was like a partition wall, because like in the back was like where you would have Sunday school or different classrooms or anything like that, right? So there was like child artwork back there, you know, like when they make clouds and then they hang strings of construction paper from like the cloud to look like rain, but it's like looks like a little accordion style. Do you know what I'm saying? So there was like 5 strips off this one that I was looking at, and this guy was giving us the history about this pastor that like he went crazy and he like was really mysterious, like they didn't know where he came from, and it was like the early 1900s and all this, I mean, creepy pastor story, right? While he's telling the story, my dad's like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot be in here. I don't like it. I'm leaving. So my dad picked up and he walked out and he just sat in the car because he knew this was our last stop and he was done. He had too much stimulation from this ghosty tour. I almost followed him. The amount of dread and depression and heaviness that I felt in this church was crazy. I mean, I had never felt like that before, and it was not good. You know what I'm saying? So again, this piece of artwork is behind and he's telling the story, and my dad dipped out and I'm looking at this artwork. It just caught my eye for some reason, and he's finishing up the story and I'm kind of listening about the pastor being crazy and weird and nobody knew where he came from, and he had these, you know, like an affair or something and all this kind of stuff. And I'm looking at this piece of artwork and I shit you not, maybe I can have an example, right? Sorry, I'm trying to see what paint I want in my bathroom. Okay, so like, say these things are like hanging, like accordion style, right? And it's like the cloud, okay? I shit you not, there was one, like they're all hanging, there was like one in the center, and it kept like swinging back and forth. Seriously, these like 5 construction pieces, and like the middle one was just doing this. Back and forth and back and forth. None of the other 2 on the other side of it were moving. And I looked at it and I was staring at it and staring at it, and it kept moving. And it's just this piece of child artwork. And I was like, God, that kind of reminds me of like a noose. You know what I'm saying? Like a rope. Right? And this, as I'm thinking this in my head, right? The ghost tour guy goes, yeah, and then the pastor ended up unaliving himself with a rope in that back room. When I tell you, my whole body chilled. Like I still have goosebumps from it. Like, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm still like, I was done. I was like, get me out. Get me out. Get me out. This is too much for me today. I don't think so. I cannot handle this. So no. Did I see anything? Technically no. But I asked my sister too. I was like, did you see the piece of artwork movie? And they're like, no. And they even turned on the lights for us and we went back there. I was like, I'm not going back there. I don't want to. I went back there for like 3 seconds. I was like, Dad's outside. Let's go. I'm done. So, Alton. Alton to me was scarier than Salem, and it was scarier than Savannah, Georgia. But according to my sister who's with me, and I've not been there yet, New Orleans. New Orleans is probably one of the scariest places she said that she's ever been. Ever. So maybe I can get her to come on here and tell her story. But seriously, check out Alton, Illinois. It's worth it.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Hi, so I live in Japan, right? And I used to live in a city called Ishinamaki. And I have quite a few ghost stories from this, but my favorite one is the one that I completely cannot explain. And that is, long story short, I was on this app called Clubhouse, and I was in one of those rooms and they were talking about like ghosts and demons and stuff like that. And I got really like into the paranormal stuff because I'm kind of witchy and I wanted to see like what can happen. But I didn't do anything. I just listened and, talked about past experiences from my childhood. And so that night I went to sleep. And you'd have to know me to know that I hate cigarettes. Like I will cross the street if a person is smoking a cigarette. I cannot stand the smell of them. So, child, how about I woke up and I had like a one bedroom apartment with a sliding door that opened into the living room and the kitchen. And I woke up and I smelled smoke in my apartment, knowing damn well I live by myself and my windows are closed. So I know nobody's smoke is coming in from outside, and I don't live on a major street. I live I live in the East Shinnecock. It's like the countryside, and I live by a river. So like I know there's no way that there's smoke in my apartment. I'm like, surely I'm hallucinating. But whatever. I get up, I open my sliding door to go to the kitchen and get something to drink. Y'all, now I'm not no liar. I didn't see a ghost, but what I did see was a damn cloud of cigarette smoke sitting above my couch. Like somebody was sitting on the couch smoking a cigarette. And I said, oh, hell no. I believe in ghosts and spirits. So I told him or her, probably him, because I know older Japanese men love to smoke. I said, I don't know who you are or what you want or how you got here, but you got to get the hell out of here. I opened the the balcony door, and I started fanning the smoke out of my room. And I swear to God, y'all, I heard a person make a groaning sound like they was irritated, and it sounded like it was moving out the door. And that's it. That's my first ghost story. I got a few more, but that's like the least scary one. But if you want to hear more, let me know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
So in 2013, I had moved into this cute little 3-bedroom apartment after separating from my then husband, and my kiddos were 10, 6, and I had just a barely new infant. And I try to keep that in mind, like when I'm like considering the reality of these experiences that happened during this one like little time period that I was living in this house. But to be frank, like I was more stressed out before I left, and it was almost kind of like a when I moved into this apartment. So I really don't think I was like overly stressed out, even given like the recently separated and like having a little bitty baby with 2 other kids. But probably the first few nights that I lived in the apartment, my then 6-year-old had walked into my room, and it looked exactly like her. The blonde hair, she had on a long pajama dress, and it was like red, like plaid, like kind of looked like Christmas pajamas. And it wasn't something that my daughter actually owned, like as I was thinking about on the other side, because as she walked over to me, I just said, oh baby, did you have a bad dream? Come here. And I sat up in bed, and as she was walking over to me and I went to go put my arms around her, nothing was there. So I either like hallucinated or it was a ghost, but a very detailed ghost, because it looked exactly like her, and then she even had on pajamas that I knew that my daughter did not own. The second encounter was probably months and months later, and I had kind of drifted off to sleep, and it was daytime when I went to sleep, and then when I had woke up, it was now nighttime outside, and beside me was standing this huge 6'4" in height man, huge broad chest. I couldn't see his head, and I couldn't really see his arms or his legs. It was just like his chest, but like I knew it was there. It was just like the shadow, but just very detailed. And he was wearing a black and white plaid like shirt, button up, something that like a farmer would wear. So like in my head, I felt like he was a farmer, but he was just standing there, and it was so eerie. And I almost like wanted to reach out my finger and touch him, because I kept closing my eyes and opening my eyes, closing my eyes and opening my eyes. Like, is this really happening right now? And I was just too scared to reach out and like touch to see if like this was actually real or not. Like I kind of knew it was a ghost. And finally, eventually just like went back to sleep and then woke up. And the next morning, I mean, it had me so on edge that I even told my grandmother, like, hey, this happened to me last night. And she was like, oh, I've had stuff like that happen to me too. So it was creepy. And after 2013 and after moving out of that apartment, I haven't had an experience like that since.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So the year is 2006. I feel like my dad may have just gotten out of jail or was home for some time. So, it was a good idea for me to go visit him. So he lived in Stamford, Connecticut, where that house belonged to my great grandmother. My great grandfather served in the army and all those different things as well. The house was it was like a multi-family house and had upstairs, downstairs, and it had different kind of like apartments, but they made it into one. If you know, you know. So I newly just got into the space of MySpace and all those different things at that time. I was 12 years old, by the way, in 2006. So one night I was on MySpace and, at that time, computers wasn't an everyday thing in everyone's house. You seen somebody with a computer, you thought they was rich, whatever the situation is. So I ended up going on MySpace. I was up there all night. It's now in the wee hours of the morning, which we call the witching hour. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting a little sleepy. Let me go in my dad's room and lay down. Mind you, in my family, things already happened. A lot of spiritual things was going on. I have one experience as well. My grandmother seeing a hand running by her foot and all different types of stuff. But we'll get into that another time. So as I'm on the computer, I decide to turn off the monitor. So I put the computer on sleep, which turns off the monitor. So now it's a black screen. I don't learn about black screens until I get much older about them being portals. As I am looking through the black screen, I see this figure near the bathroom. Near the kitchen. The kitchen was behind me. I didn't really know what to say or what to do, so I was kind of like, damn, should I run downstairs where my cousin Jasmine and all them at, where they lived in the lower levels of the house, or should I run towards my great aunt room, because her room was towards the back as well. So I decided to just get up and run. And originally I was going to run downstairs. When I got up to run, the figure ran past me, and I felt this very cold, almost webby-like feeling from the energy running past me. At this point, I haul ass to my great aunt's room. I come in the room, she's like, oh, you okay? And I said, yeah, kind of sleeping here, She thought nothing of it. She was like, hey, come sleep. So I slept in her room and stuff like that. Ironically, the next day when I wake up in the rising, I can hear her and my cousin talking about the experience last night. And, before I get too far ahead, I did tell her that I'd seen something, like some type of figure. So that's why she was like, oh, just come in my room. It's like it was normal, like a normal day for them. So ironically, like I said, I heard my cousin and her talking, which is her granddaughter. And I wake up exactly on the point where they're talking about where she was like, oh, such and such seen, a ghost last night, or a cousin, or whatever the situation is. Well, I forgot what she, the word and verbatimly what she said. And that kind of like shook the core of my experiences going there, because I just thought about that experience where I'm like, oh shit, I'm turning the damn monitor off, and this big figure is standing at the doorway of the kitchen. I don't know what to do. I haul ass. It runs past me. It feels so cold and so misty and webby like, and people probably that had those same experiences will like, validate that. It was just a lot. But I have so many other experiences. I'm a medium. I see a lot. I know a lot. I pick up on a lot. So ghosts and all those different things is not something that's new to me. But I hope y'all enjoy that.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I have a few ghost stories, but for some reason, these two have always stuck out for me in the past 10 years. And they both happened like literally in a month of my dad when he passed away. So my dad had passed away March 13th, 2014 at the age of 49 from liver cirrhosis. The night he passed away, I was so drained and just obviously heartbroken because I just lost my dad. And so I was on the phone with my fiance after when we were on our way home. And I believe that after we had gotten on the phone, I texted him and I told him that I was tired and I'm going to go to sleep. So I'm literally parked in the same spot that this happened. In the car, everything. So I'm in the car with my cousin and my mom's best friend. I'm in the back seat, they're in the front. I'm in the back seat and it's silent because I don't know what we could talk about after what, just happened. So I'm in the back seat and I'm falling asleep. And when I fall asleep, I wake up to my name being called into my ear, which sounded just like my dad. Like literally sounded just like my dad. And by the way, we had lost my dad at 11:47 p.m. March 13th. So I say maybe this happened around like sometime around midnight. I know that was my dad. So that's the first story that's out of the way. Now this one, I have the proof and it's going to shock most of you. So as I mentioned, my dad was 49 when he passed away on March 13th, and his birthday was the next month, which was April 10th, and he was going to be 50. So my dad's birthday arrives. I get my dad a carrot cake. That was his favorite flavor of cake. So I get him his favorite cake. It's a personal one, just a small one that, me, my fiance, his two kids, my sister, we could all share to eat in honor of my dad. So I'm going to post the photo. And yeah, then you guys can just let me know what your thoughts are. So we're in my room. I go ahead and I light the candles. And I noticed that the candle is like, moving a lot. There's no fan in my room. We weren't moving. We were pretty still singing happy birthday. Well, once we get to the end of singing happy birthday, the candle blows out on its own. I didn't blow it out. None of my kids, my sister, we did not blow the candle out. So, what is that? Can somebody explain to me what that is? I did a close-up, so hold on. I see a nose. I see like a structure of the face. That was my dad, you guys. I don't care what anybody says. 444. I don't care what anybody says. That is my dad. That was my dad standing next to his cake, and he blew out his birthday candle. That confirmed me that that was my dad. And I have so many other stories, but this one has always stuck out to me the most. In the past 10 years that I've had ghost encounters, with, or, whatever with my dad, like, I don't know, you guys, but I digged and digged and digged for this screenshot. And I'm so glad that I have this. And I'm glad that this person made this TikTok, because I never really thought to share this. But y'all, explain to me, what are your thoughts? What do you think? I deep down inside believe that it's my dad. So let me know in the comments.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
So I come from a family of 8, and my aunt owns these cabins in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, and there was 2 of them, and they were like kind of right next to each other. My mom would take us and like all my siblings, and every once in a while we get to bring like friends with us. A couple of us did. So this one time we go, and my mom and my brothers and their 2 friends are staying in one cabin, and then me and my 3 sisters, and then one of my sisters brought her friend. We're all staying in another cabin. It's like maybe a quarter of a mile away from the other cabin. In our cabin, there was 2 bedrooms downstairs, and they had like 2 queen beds. So my sister and her friend stayed in one, my other sister stayed in another. And upstairs, there was like a loft with like a tiny bedroom, and that's where I was. When we first get there, we're all like reading the guest book that this place has, and every single entry in there is talking about like the noises upstairs. And of course, like my sisters are teasing me because I'm the one that has to stay upstairs. The first night we're there, we're all watching a movie, and we hear like the sounds upstairs, and they're like distinct footprints. Like I know what it sounds like when a house settles. We were all like, these are footprints. Like it literally sounds like there's a man with work boots stomping around upstairs. Now I have to go sleep all alone upstairs. And of course I was really scared. I was like 12. Next morning I come down, they're all like, Jenna, like, are you okay? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, the sounds were like so loud last night. Like they were going all night. Like we could barely sleep because it was so loud upstairs. Of course, my first thought is like, none of y'all thought to check on me, but like, whatever. I'm like, that's creepy. Our entire family, like we go to do some like day excursion, and my one sister is like super tired because she has like sleep issues. And she was like, I'm going to stay here and take a nap. Didn't have a phone at this time, but I had like an iPod Touch, and it was about to die, and I can't use it without Wi-Fi. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it here charging like in the middle of the living room. We come back from our day excursion, and my sister is still sleeping, and we go wake her up, and she's like, I'm still sleeping because y'all are being so loud and annoying. And we're like, what are you talking about? We literally just got home. She's like, nobody was here. And we're like, no. And she's like, are you guys lying? Like she kept asking if we were joking. And we're like, no, we're not joking. We were literally all gone. And she says that she heard the loud footsteps again, but that she also, it sounded like somebody was taking like a kitchen chair right outside of her door and like slamming it on the ground. Like she thought we were all pranking her or something. I go on my iPod Touch. I don't know why. I think I was like trying to post an Instagram photo. So I go through my picture. My iPod Touch has picked multiple pictures, like 10 of the room, like different corners of the room, but they're like completely like blurry. Not like blurry as in someone was moving the camera fast, like blurry as if there was like something in front of the camera. So you know what the thing is, I deleted the flipping pictures because I wasn't thinking anything of it, and I was like, these are terrible pictures, delete, delete, delete. Like I was the only one that saw it. Then that night I was gonna go upstairs and sleep again, and we heard like the loud noises, and I was like, I'm not sleeping up there. So I slept in my sister and her friend's room. These noises, they were getting like louder and louder and louder. So we literally all just like stood up and ran the quarter of a mile to my mom's cabin, and we stayed there for the rest of the trip because we were so flipping scared.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
My kid proved to me when they were 6 years old that they could see dead people. So story time. 12 years ago, we had just moved into an apartment, and it was not under fortunate circumstances. This was not a happy place for me. I didn't really like the experience of it. I didn't realize that there could have been a connection between that and what I'm about to tell you. So my 6-year-old could never really sleep through the night, but this place was different. This was when my 6-year-old started telling me why they couldn't sleep at night, and it was because there was an old man in their room that would stand at the foot of their bed and tell them to leave because this was their home. And I thought that that was really strange that my 6-year-old was telling me this. And this I considered was like a fantastical story. At the time, I was a very, very skeptical person. I didn't believe in anything spiritual. I was not raised to be religious or spiritual. So I tended to have a very critical, skeptical, almost cynical mindset about this sort of thing when it would come up. And this to me just sounded like a little kid making up a story to me. So I played along with them a little bit, and I would investigate. When they would say there was a man in their room, I'd be like, okay, show me where he is. And we couldn't find him. I asked my kid to describe this man to me, and they described him as an older white man who was pale and had blue eyes and white hair and a white beard. And so my first impression was like, okay, that's pretty detailed. That's a little creepy, but okay, whatever. It's a story. This is, I'm just like in this disbelief still. But months go by, and then I finally get a piece of mail from Bank of America, and it is my address, but somebody else's name. And this just sets off like a little alarm in my mind to think I need to call Bank of America because this isn't right. Somebody's got the address wrong, or there's something fishy going on. And so I call Bank of America and I tell them, this is my address. This is the name of the person whose mail I got. And nobody by that name has lived here for many months. I've been here for months. So they're like, well, we need you to give us the numbers on the card so that we can find out which account this is going on with. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So I followed their instruction, and when I see the picture of the customer on the debit card, I'm like, oh, that's an elderly white man with blue eyes and white hair and a white beard. And I'm not making the connection at this point because this whole time I just thought my kid was just making up a story, and I just refused to listen to it or believe them. And they didn't, keep telling me this night after night, I think because they knew I wasn't going to really hear them and I wasn't going to give it the time of day. But then the bank rep asked me to cut up the card. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do that right now. Is there anything else you need me to do? So while I'm looking for a pair of scissors, I put the card down on the living room table. And my kid hears me from the other room talking on the phone. And they come out and they're like, oh, what's that about? And they see the card on the table. And then they say, that's the man in my room. And I'm like, what the? So I cut up the card and I looked up this guy's name because that just creeped me out that my kid would just very innocently say oh, that's him. And it was unnerving. So I look him up, I find his obituary. And apparently he had died sometime before me and my kid moved in there. I didn't really know what to do at that point, but I really didn't like what was going on with my kid. And it just made me question everything about my reality. And it made me think of how, if my kid was right about this, what other stuff is going on that I am not aware of. So I really just went for a deep dive down the rabbit hole to learn as much as I could about psychic phenomena. And it's been going on for the last 12 years. And so it's definitely a special interest of mine. But I really wanted to understand, how can I support my child? Because the guilt of how I handled that situation was just eating me alive. And I just wanted my kid to be able to sleep through the night. And I didn't know how I could do that because I wasn't able to experience what they were experiencing. And so I tried to find people that could help me. And I actually started going to psychic fairs. And I tried to meet other psychic people and see if they could advise me. So I ended up finding at this esoteric bookstore here in the Seattle area. I ended up getting in contact with somebody who explained to me what I could do to get this man to leave. Now, this person was not a psychic medium, so their advice was really not the right way to handle it. They basically explained to me how I could evict the spirit from my home without actually giving him any closure or helping him to cross over or help him with his unfinished business. And that would have been the right thing to do. But I didn't even know, I'm just the only thing I know about ghosts is from entertainment, movies, TV shows, and they're all fictionalized or sensationalized stories about these kinds of things. What I was getting to understand was that, oh, these are people. Spirits are people with unfinished business. And he had some unfinished business. So after I did this horrible eviction process, which was really just like cleansing my home and then creating an energetic boundary around it according to the instructions that I got from this person. And it was really sloppy because I had never done anything like this before and didn't really know what I was doing or how to do it. But I followed their instructions as best I could, to the letter. And, then we didn't have any problems and my kid was able to sleep through the night. But as soon as the boundary became opened again from, sweeping the salt off of the threshold of my apartment, guess who came back and started slamming cupboard doors and bringing a lot of, electrical problems and just stuff I had never experienced before in the apartment. And it was like really upsetting to me. So I was told by a psychic medium this time that like you should try talking to him because it's obviously this is the last tenant of this apartment that's sticking around here for some reason. So I just said out loud, whatever you want or need, you're not going to have to worry about it, about us being here anymore. We're leaving. And I had a psychic medium visiting our apartment who was able to more or less have sort of a dialogue with them. And they explained, he was waiting for his son to move him out. Like he was sick and he was waiting for his son to move him out. And unfortunately, he passed away before his son could get him moved out. And he just wants his son to know that he loves him. So that psychic medium, he actually found his surviving family on Facebook and he sent him a message and he apparently just explained this whole situation and like gave the address and everything and just said, hey, I know that he lived here and I know that he also passed away here. This is what's been going on. And he just gave me a message he wanted me to pass on to you. And that's all. And then before I ended up moving out, he seemed to just leave on his own. So I think we helped him find peace. And ever since then, my entire life has been very, very different. I have a lot more things to share about that. Life has really been interesting ever since then. 12 years ago. So anyway, that's my I believe in ghosts now story time.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
I have a ghost story for you. Okay, I have a few, but I'm going to share with you my favorite. Let me set the scene first. So this was at least 10 years ago. I was recently married. My son was a baby at this time. I don't remember exactly how old he was. We lived in a little rental house that was old. And it had a back bedroom that was our bedroom, but the bedroom was an add-on that had been stuck onto the house at a later time. So it didn't have its own hallway. The way that you got into this room was either through our son's bedroom or through the kitchen. Okay. So I had a corner desk set up in the room, and that was where I would just sit and do like my drawing. So I have my little swiveling office chair, has my corner desk, my back is to the doors. So on the night in question, my husband is in the kitchen, so again, right behind our room, cooking dinner, and I'm sitting at the desk working on drawings or whatever. So I'm like hyper-focused on whatever I'm doing. Our son is in his room asleep. My husband's in the kitchen cooking. The door between our room and the kitchen is open. The door between our room and the baby room is closed. Okay, so as I'm sitting at my desk, focusing on my drawing, I become aware that my husband has now left the kitchen and is in our room. I can hear him walking around behind me. It sounds like he maybe had gone into the closet, shuffled around and grabbed something. And then like the old wooden floors are kind of creaky. So whenever someone takes a step, especially if you're like walking sort of just like slowly, you can hear like creaks in the floor and you can kind of almost feel the floor moving as you're sitting in a chair, right? Okay. So after a little bit of him pacing around kind of behind me, I feel him walk up next to me or like right behind my chair. And so I know he's right behind me because, usually like you're sitting in your swiveling chair and you kind of, it moves with you, you know? Well, at one point I can tell that he's standing directly behind me, like with maybe his like chest up against the back of the chair or something, because the chair is held still. It's not moving around. So I'm sitting here drawing, but like the chair isn't moving with me. Okay. So then at some point I like hunched over my drawing, I sit up like this, okay? And then I feel his hand on my shoulder, and it does sort of like a little like massage motion, and then like a little pat, and then he like rests his hand, just sitting his hand on my shoulder. And so I think he's just like watching me like drawing or whatever. And so I'm kind of like winding up my project anyway. So I like set my pen down, and then I didn't turn around and look at him. I just said something to him. Okay, I don't remember what I said, but as I'm saying it, I can still feel his hand like on my shoulder, right? So then with his hand that is currently sitting on my shoulder, I hear from the kitchen in a separate room, probably 25 feet away from me, I hear him say something like, "What did you say?" Or like, "Did you say something?" And I'm like, I cannot tell you the shock. If you have someone touching your shoulder and then you hear their voice speaking to you from another room. Okay, so obviously I spin the office chair around, right, to face the doors. And as I do that, I feel the hand like kind of roughly like pull away from my shoulder. And then this like freezing cold blast of air like kind of blast like past me or like through me. Enough so that it like blew my son's door open. So his door was just like cracked, and now it's like almost all the way open. And then I see my husband start walking in from the kitchen all casual. He's like holding a spatula, and he's like, "Did you say something?" And I'm like looking at him all like flabbergasted, you know, like freaking out. And I'm like questioning him. I'm like, "Were you in here? Did you come in here? Like, when was the last time you came in here?" And he was like, "No, I've been in the kitchen just cooking away. I haven't even been in here at all. You've just been in here drawing. The baby's asleep. Everything's fine." So once it hits me that that was absolutely no way, not my husband in the room with me, then it kind of hits me like, oh my God, something went in from my room into our son's room. It like opened the door and went in there. So I like jump up and I'm thinking I'm gonna go grab my sleeping baby out of the crib. My son is literally sitting up in his crib, just kind of like staring at his door. Like normally if he would be asleep in his crib and then wake up, he would immediately start like fussing or crying or like wanting me to come get him and get him out. No, he's just sitting there in the dark, staring at his door. So basically I'm left to conclude that a ghost pretended to be my husband, mimicked my husband's like normal behaviors, gave me a shoulder massage, and then when he got busted, he just blasted out of there and he was freezing cold air. I still don't know what to make of this. I think about it on a regular basis. I do have a couple of other weird stories. One specifically was from that house, and I feel like the running thread through all of my like ghost encounters, it's always a ghost that I didn't see, but I hear them, feel them, and they seem to be copying what another person normally would do. So yeah, I do kind of want to tell the other weird story that happened in that house, and then another really weird one that happened in this gym that I used to work in. But yeah, I'll probably tell those later.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I've been debating talking about this on the internet, and I wanted to stitch this so long, but this story sounds so fake and like out of a movie that I don't, like, if you don't believe me, like, I completely understand, but yeah. So basically, when I was around 5 or 6, maybe a little older, my sister just got this Barbie doll that I really wanted. Like, I wanted it, but they got it for her and not me. And what makes it weirder is this was a brand new Barbie, like, it like out of the box, like, that just makes it weird because I know a lot of paranormal stuff happens with stuff that's like been around longer and also has a lot of energy. So basically that night, and I can actually show you where it happened because I still live in this house that it happened at. Also, when I was little, I would always wake up around 5 or 6 because I went to bed earlier and I just had so much energy that I would wake up before my parents, and I would either watch TV or like go into their bed for a little bit and wait for them to wake up. So this is my mom's bed, and I was laying like this, kicking my feet, and here is a long hallway that you can see out of. And basically I was at the edge of the bed kicking my feet, whatever, and I hear this plastic tapping like in the hallway, and it sounded so familiar. I knew the sound, but I just didn't know what it was. And oh my god, this is so, like, it sounds so fake. Okay, so basically this Barbie like turned the corner into my mom's room, and then I go, "Dad, there's a Barbie walking," and he's like half awake, so he's just like, leave it alone, leave it alone." and I was trying to wake him up and like show him, but he just wouldn't turn over. Let me also preference that my mom was in my sister's room when this happened, sleeping in her room because they were both sick, and she was in my sister's room. Because if I was telling my mom this, then she would obviously like wake up to see. But basically it's walking like pretty fast, like it's like do, 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 side to side, and then it stops in the middle of her bedroom and turns its head, looks at me, and then I go and then it like books it straight to the bathroom that's like connected to my mom's room. And I get up to follow it because I'm also kind of excited because when I was little I really wanted my dolls and my Barbies, or just like a doll, to be alive, but I couldn't find it anywhere in her bathroom or like the closet that's connected to the bathroom. So I wait for my mom to wake up, I go back to the bed, and I keep trying to wake my dad up, but he like starts to get mad at me. And when my mom wakes up, I tell her, and she looks really freaked out, and like her face gets like a little pale. I like remember her face, and I tell her, and she was like, that was a dream, like stop it, don't talk about that, don't bring that up again, like you were dreaming. And when I would bring it up again, like she would always just say, you were dreaming, I don't know what you're talking about, till I was older. And then like 3 years ago, or like 2 years ago, like I brought it up again, and it was like, Mom, like I remember this happening and you always just tell me it was a dream. Like I remember getting up, I remember telling Dad. And she was like, yeah, well, I believed you, and I believe you, but she's very religious, so she doesn't like to talk about stuff like that, especially in the house. And she was like, I just didn't want you to bring it up or freak you out or freak myself out. And she basically heard the tapping too, but yeah, so she like backed it up and was like, I believe you. And she's very like, she does not like talking about that stuff, and she doesn't want to believe in it and will shut stuff like that down. But yeah, and the next day we found it, but it was in my sister's dollhouse where we originally didn't put it, and even my sister was like, that's not where I put it. And we had a yard sale that the next day, or I forgot when, and my mom actually like told us to sell it and we'll just get a new one for her. And so I didn't put that 2 and 2 together, but yeah.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable.
All right, so I came straight to the car to tell you this one because I'm on my lunch break and we got 15 minutes. So biggest red flag. If the house or the apartment is cheap, almost too good to be true, it is. It's more than likely 9 times out of 10 haunted. Now let me tell you why. Let me tell you my story, and a lot of my followers have heard this from the beginning because I did tell this story when I first made my TikTok. But ever since then I've had a lot of new followers. I don't know if you guys went that back. Probably not. So let's just get to it. So I was about 16 years old. Sorry if I'm out of breath. This is a very intense story. I was about 16 years old. I was working, going to school, and I had 2 kids. I did apply for my first apartment because I'm like, if I'm gonna be responsible, I'm gonna go all the way. So I applied at these apartments that I saw that were kind of within budget, you know. Let me tell you how literally a day later the manager calls me and was like, bring me $100 for a deposit and you're in. You can move in today. Didn't even ask me for the first month's rent, and I didn't think anything of it. I was 17 years old trying to get out of my mama's house, so I was like, say yes, I'm on my way. No furniture, no nothing. And I went, gave the lady $100. She handed me over my keys, didn't even ask me for the first month's rent. Again, let me emphasize on that. And I was like, okay. Start moving my stuff in. Wasn't a lot because it was my first apartment. I really didn't have any help, so you know, first few days were okay. I invited my friend over. She started staying with me because she was dating my brother at the time, so me and her were very close, and him and her would always come over just to spend time with each other. Well, sorry if I keep doing that. I'm just eating. I'm on lunch. Now, tell me why one morning she comes to my room. I guess she got up early to cook breakfast, and she came to my room and she looked like she had just seen a ghost. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, you have something in your apartment. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, something is in here. You have like a ghost or something. I'm like,
you're tripping. Yeah, okay. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, I was cooking eggs, and when I tried to grab the salt, it literally moved out of my hand. And I'm like, girl, you're tripping. There's probably like oil or something. Like, there's no way that could happen. Anyways, I brushed it under the rug. And like small little things would happen. Like one day we were all watching a movie in the living room, and something hits the back of the wall. Because okay, so this is the living room wall, and there's a couch in front of it. I had a big old picture frame that was cut in 3, so it made one big picture frame. Now when it hit the wall, the only 2 side ones started swaying like back and forth. The middle one didn't move at all. So it was just like, I looked back and I'm like, okay, that was weird. Mind you, we're all in the living room, nobody's in the kids' room. So I'm just like, maybe something fell, I don't know. Again, my mind was just trying to find logic as to why these little things were happening. So then I started dating somebody, and he would, you know, stay the night every so often. And I remember this one night we were arguing. He stayed the night, and we had our backs faced to each other. So my back was faced towards him, his was faced towards mine. So I'm facing the wall. Mind you, the wall that I'm facing has a big, like, long window. Like the window goes all the way to the floor. So I turn, and as soon as I turn, I see the silhouette of somebody standing there. And I'm just like, I am terrified because I don't want to move. I don't want to make too much noise because there is literally a man standing there. So I turn around and I'm like, there's somebody right there. So my boyfriend at the time turns around and he's like, oh shit. He's like, go turn on the light. And I'm like, boy, first red flag. I should have known then. But anyways, this ain't about him. Yeah, so he asked me to go turn it on. I'm like, looking at him like, are you stupid? Okay, I'm gonna go turn it on. But when I said that, he got up and finally went to go turn on the light. Mind you, we had only been there like maybe 2 months. Curtains brand new. And when he turned on the light, my curtains were moved like if somebody was standing there. They're brand new curtains. So I'm just like, you know, that was weird. Every night before I would go to bed, I would close my closet door. So this is my bed. My bed's right here. Right in front of my bed, there was a closet, like a small little walk-in closet. Every night I would close my closet door. Every time in the morning, it would be open. And I was just like, maybe the latch is loose. I would always try to make logical explanations for why little things would happen. Never thought anything of it till one day, my daughter, she was about 2-3 years old at the time. She woke up in the middle of the night screaming, panicking, and mind you, it's just me and my 2 little ones living there at the time. So I wake up, and in their room they have a tall one window, and it's long too, and it wasn't the greatest of neighborhoods. So I freaked out and I thought somebody was hurting her. I run to the room, and she's in the corner in the dark crying, and she's like, mama. And I'm like, what? She's like, tell the blue lady to get out, she bit me. And I'm like, what? I turn on the lights, nobody's there. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, she had a nightmare. She's like, she bit my finger. I'm looking at her finger. Her finger is red. Like, if somebody bit her or something bit her. So I'm like, maybe it was just a bad dream. Like, again, I put it off. And I had the 2 kids at the time. My daughter, the one that saw the blue lady, or had a dream about the blue lady. And my son, he was a year younger than her. He couldn't talk yet, but every time I would find him, he would be in the closet with the door closed and baby talking. Mind you, he wouldn't talk to nobody. He was a very, very silent kid. I'm trying not to do a part 2, so I'm going to try to do it as fast as I can. If y'all want any details, y'all ask me after this. So I remember one day I was looking for him all over the place, all over the house, because I had the door open because I had made something, I think it burned, and I let all the smoke go out of the house. So I left the door open, and my daughter and my son were sitting down on the couch looking at TV. I went to the restroom and I came out and my son was not there. So I'm like frantically looking for him, cannot find him anywhere, run outside. I'm about to call like the police, like where's my son at? And then I'm looking in their rooms, nothing, looking in my room, I can't find him anywhere. And I'm like, maybe somebody came in and got him, like I don't know. And so I hear baby talk and I follow the voice and I find him in the closet. All the lights are off in my daughter's room, and there's no closet light. I open the closet door and he's sitting in the closet corner, as if like if somebody was cradling him, and he's just there, just baby talking, like happy. And I'm just like, what is going on, you know? Okay, so then it gets worse. So these little like incidents just keep getting worse and worse. My mom comes over one day and I tell her, you know, some weird things have been happening around the house. Emery keeps saying she's seeing a blue lady. They keep talking about this blue lady. My son's doing some weird things, and she's like, oh, we'll settle this, you know. So my mom goes to my daughter's room, and she's like baby talking with her, because my daughter's 2, 3 at the time. My son was 1, she was 2. And my mom's telling her, like, where's the blue lady at, baby? So my daughter goes in the room and she looks at her bed. Mind you, it's a little toddler bed. It's literally like 1 inch, 2 inches from the floor. And she's like, hers right there, grandma. Hers right there, pointing at her bed. So my mom, she goes and pretends like she's telling the lady, get out of her room. Get out of the room right now. And my mom says, there, baby, she's gone. She's not gonna bother you anymore. My daughter turns around and she's like, no, grandma, her's still there. And me and my mom said, oh, I'm out. And she's like, well, where? Show me. So my little toddler goes and lifts up her little bed, her little toddler bed, and she's like, hers right there. And me and my mom are looking at each other like, oh my gosh. Okay, anyways. So I'm like, she has quite an imagination. My daughter was a very, very, very social kid. She talked a lot. So I was just like, maybe she's just in her imagination. I don't know. So let me fast forward. It's New Year's. We go to my boyfriend's parents' house, and we're there. It's like 12, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, and I get this really gut feeling, and I'm telling him all night, let's go, I want to go. And he's just, one more drink and we'll go. And I'm just like, no, something don't feel right, like, let's go. And so he says, okay, fine, let's go. It's already 2 o'clock in the morning. So we head home. When we get home, my stuff, like my apartment was broken into. Everything was just flipped over, and just, it was ransacked. And I was just like, I knew that gut feeling was for a reason. So I called the cops, and they come over, and the cop is doing the report, and he's looking at his buddy, because it was 2 of them. He's looking at his buddy. He's like, remember that story that I told you? He's like, it happened here. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what happened here? Me nosy, because I want to know too, what happened here? And then the cop goes, oh shit. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, nah, if I tell you, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So I'm sitting there like, now you gotta tell me, because I'm living here. Like, what happened? And he's like, we're gonna have to do a part 2, because we're hitting the limit.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely...
Okay, so this situation happened within a 3-day time span. So I used to do home health care, and I had this one lady, and she was the sweetest can be. Like, she was one of my favorites. But she was 103. You couldn't tell she was 103 because she looked really good, and she was still independent, but she really just needed someone to like be there with her and watch her to make sure nothing happened. So I was third shift. I did 7:30 to 7:30. I had about 3 to 4 days on, and then I had the rest of the days off. So like I said, this happened in a 3-day time span, because by the 4th day, she was unfortunately gone. So first night comes, and every time when I would get there, she would always have like a pillow and a blanket and the remote waiting for me, because she's like, you're going to be here all night. You might as well get comfortable, watch some TV, do what you got to do, which I did get comfortable, watch some TV. I did. So I'm in the living room watching TV. Now, mind you, off to the side, there were a set of stairs that led to the upstairs. But she had not been upstairs in the last, I think, like 10 years, because she just could not do stairs anymore. So the upstairs was just really not used. And her family didn't really come see her either. So no one had been in the upstairs in about 10 years. So as I'm sitting there watching TV, all of a sudden, I literally hear footsteps, light footsteps, come down the stairs. And it happened real quick, but I heard the footsteps come down the stairs. So I quick look over, and I'm sitting there like, nah, I'm tripping. I'm tripping. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I ain't got no sleep. I really didn't get no sleep the night before, so I'm like, I'm tripping. I'm just tripping. So about a good maybe 2 minutes later, I hear the footsteps going back up the stairs. Like, you know when you can hear from going up from going down. I heard the footsteps going back up the stairs. So at this point, I know I'm not tripping. I know for a fact I heard something. It's not because I'm late, because I'm tired. I really heard something. So I go and I check on, we'll call her Miss Mabel. So I go and I check on Miss Mabel, and she's sitting straight up in her bed, right? Staring at a corner in her room. And I'm like, Miss Mabel. And she did not snap out of it until I went over and I touched her shoulder. And she said, oh, what are you doing up? Or is everything okay? And I'm like, girl, are you okay? So I put her back to bed, And then the night passes, I leave, I come back the next night. So the next night comes, and this night I am exhausted. Like, I had just worked my second job earlier in the day. I didn't get a chance to take a nap, so I am exhausted because I had been up almost 24 freaking hours, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm dozing off on the couch, and all of a sudden I hear her talking. But not like as in like just saying, oh, just having a little conversation with herself. No, she's literally, everything she's saying is a response to something. Like, she's having a conversation with somebody. So after a little while, I go in the room and I ask, I'm like, hey, Miss Mabel, like, what's going on? You okay? Like, who are you talking to? This lady looks at me with the biggest smile on her face. And she said, oh, I'm just talking to the lovely lady that's been coming to see me for the past couple nights. So you know what immediately popped in my head? What fucking lady? Ain't no lady in here. So I'm like, oh, okay, girl, okay, you know. I'm like, maybe we should get you back to bed. So I put her back to bed, and that night passes, and I go home. Third night comes. So the third night comes, and this is where shit, like, just really starts to just amp up. So I'm sitting on the couch in the living room, minding my business, right? And all of a sudden, I hear footsteps come back down those stairs, okay? And this time I hear them go into the kitchen. Mind you, the kitchen is right behind me. So I'm frozen in fear. I'm not looking behind me at all. I'm sitting there acting like I didn't hear it. I don't know what the fuck is going on. So after about 5 minutes of me sitting there frozen in fear and in sweat, Miss Mabel comes around the corner. Now, mind you, in the living room, she had this special chair that she loved to take naps in, or she loved to just come and sleep in the middle of the night when she couldn't, just sleep in her bed. So she comes in and she's like, you know what? I think I'm going to just spend the rest of the night in here with you. And I said, why, Miss Mabel? Is everything okay? That's fine, but are you okay? This woman looks at me, and she goes, the people in my room won't stop talking to me. Hello? So at this point, I'm terrified, but I don't want her to know that I'm terrified and that I'm shitting my pants right now, because I'm supposed to be there to protect you, right? Right. So I finally get her to go back to sleep so I can be in fear by myself. So I jet out the door the next day. I was so glad to see the day nurse come, because I was like, girl, I gotta fucking go. And literally, probably around like 5 or 6 o'clock that night, I got a call saying I don't have to come in because she passed away. And I feel like whatever was going on in that house, or whoever the fuck was going through the house or running through the house or messing with her in the middle of the night, I really feel like they were preparing her to go. Looking back on it, I really feel like they was. But I don't know. I have never experienced anything else like that ever again. I hope that I never do, because that was some freaky shit. But yeah.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I'm sure plenty of you on here have heard stereotypes and rumors about how quirky and weird Portland, Oregon is, but I'm here to tell you how haunted it is. Portland, Oregon has a very, very dark history of human trafficking. It was the #1 human trafficking city in the U.S. for a very long time. There are tunnels throughout the city called Shanghai tunnels that give you tours through the tunnels that they used to traffic people through, and those tunnels are said to be very haunted. This story takes place in my 20s when I worked at a dive bar in Portland. A couple of the other bartenders and myself and a friend of ours all rented a house together. It's the most beautiful house I've ever lived in. It was this beautiful old kind of like Victorian house with mahogany built-in cabinets everywhere, bronze hardware everywhere, little lion's head knockers on all the doors. It was truly a stunning house and extremely dirt cheap. You could tell whoever originally owned the home was very wealthy in their time. They had a dumbwaiter, so obviously they had servants at some point. But this house had weird crawl spaces hidden everywhere. Like every closet had a weird crawl space off of it that would be perfect for hiding humans. And they were not just storage spaces. It was like secret doors, crawl spaces. I lived in the basement bedroom, which wasn't like anything nice. It was the cheapest room in the house. That's why I took it. But it was like semi-finished, the room, and then there was like this weird old gate off of one of the walls that it went to a weird creepy dirt room, and I just kept that door shut because it was terrifying. I hung all my hats on it and never opened the door since the day we moved in there. There was also a bedroom that was directly above me, and my friend TJ lived in that bedroom. He was the only guy in the house. TJ lost his goddamn mind when we were living there. The only way to explain how he was acting was very much like kind of like what you see in a movie when someone like moves into a haunted house and the person gets really weird and possessed or whatever. But that's kind of what happened to this guy. He just turned into a totally different person, pretty much locked himself into that bedroom and just like never came out. And my cat was really fascinated by his bedroom, was obsessed with going in there. He had told me later on that my cat used to sneak in there and used to run around and like hike up and get all crazy and like hyper and psycho inside his bedroom. And TJ for a while was warning us that the house was haunted. I didn't believe him because I grew up in a really crazy evangelical family. So I didn't really believe in ghosts and that kind of stuff. I was kind of like atheist at the time until something happened to me. Like I said, I was a bartender and I closed the bar down that night, and I used to bicycle to work, which is crazy. I used to bike like 40 minutes every night in the middle of the night in Portland, Oregon home. But so anyways, I rode my bike home and I was stone sober. It was like 3 something in the morning. I got home from work. I did my normal routine. It was nighttime, obviously. So I'm like really quiet. I kind of just like go directly downstairs into my bedroom and do my thing and get ready for bed. And my cat comes inside, as she always used to do when I would come home from work, and we crawl into bed, and she always used to sleep right like under my arm, in my arms. So we get into bed and I'm laying on my side and she's up in my armpit like she used to be. And I've got the covers up on me, and all of a sudden I feel from the side of my head, down my neck, down my shoulder, all the way down my entire body, something rubbed me with their hand. I don't know how to explain what it was, but I'm assuming it's some sort of ghost or something because everyone in that house was sleeping. I was in the basement. There's no way I wouldn't hear someone walking upstairs and walking downstairs into my room. It was absolutely terrifying. I totally froze. I didn't know what to do in the moment except for like just like pull my covers over my head and hide because like something just touched me in my room and completely felt me up. I just laid there until I fell asleep. And then the next morning I talked to my roommate TJ about it. And he was like, see, I told you it's haunted, blah, 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 blah. And we ended up moving out of that house in less than 6 months. One of the other roommates also kind of went a little crazy in that house besides the guy. But the guy was the first one who moved out. It was like, he moved out within like 4 months of living there. But we were all completely broke the lease and were out of the house within 6 months. And like I said, this is like one of the most beautiful houses. It's the most beautiful house I've ever lived in. It was so nice. It had even like a paved built-in backyard barbecue. This place was so cheap. And I would drive by this house all the time after we moved out. And that place has always stayed vacant. You will see the grass will be like 4 feet high on that house. It's in an amazing location and it is constantly vacant because I feel whoever moves into that house moves out immediately because it is so haunted. I actually have tons of other ghost stories from Portland. When you work in the bar industry in Portland, a lot of the bars are rumored to be haunted, and we all worked at a bar that was haunted. And I have tons of stories from that.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Hi, I'm Jenny, Milo's mom. I'm hijacking Milo's TikTok because we have a crazy ghost story. So very sadly, over the last 3 months, I've lost both my parents. They were in their 80s and married for over 63 years. My mom passed first in February, and she passed away on hospice at home where she wanted to be when she passed away. About a month later, my dad gave up and succumbed to dementia because I can only imagine he missed my mom very much. Both of my parents were buried in a church cemetery that is actually pretty much in their backyard where they lived for 60 years. And that was their wish, to be close to where they spent all of their time and they built their home and beautiful gardens. So that's where they were set to rest in peace. Since they've passed, their home has been kind of locked up. My siblings will come and go for various reasons, but for the most part, nobody's living there. And we installed security cameras and ring cameras all around the house to ensure its security, although it's in a very quiet and peaceful neighborhood, kind of at a dead end. There's not a lot of people around, and the ones that are around are pretty old and not very active late at night. So the other night, I was laying in bed. I live on the West Coast, and my parents were living on the East Coast. Their house is on the East Coast. And one of the ring cameras that we installed was inside of the house, and it was installed in the kitchen. So I was pretty surprised when I got a ring alert saying that there's a person detected in the kitchen. It was around midnight, and like I said, nobody was in the house. So I was like, that's strange. So being on the West Coast, it was only 9 o'clock. So I was like, maybe I'll check it out and see what's happening. You know, maybe there's like, I don't know, a bug or a mouse or something. So I wanted to check it out and just be safe. So when I watched the video, I was like, okay, I don't see anything in the video. That's strange. Why would the camera go off saying a person was detected? So I looked very carefully at the video and I got chills down my spine. If you watch the video, in the first maybe 5 to 7 seconds, you see a orb, kind of like a cloud, float from the right side of the screen all the way to the left. It was so eerie, and I'm not one to not believe in ghosts, but I've never had any reason to believe in a ghost, and I was pretty shocked when I saw this video. Thinking I was pretty crazy or I was seeing things, I shared it with a couple of friends and they saw the same exact thing. Being that my mom passed away in the house, and her house was everything to her, all of her beautiful treasures are in her house, I can only imagine that it's her. But I want you to see it too, so I'm going to post it in the comments so you can see for yourself, but it's really crazy.